Good morning, people. Happy Sunday. Welcome in to Bet and Breakfast. Ben Heisler, Peter Dewey with you for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Plenty to discuss on the program today. Lots of Game 7s. Peter and I are going to go through the two in the NBA. Perhaps one of the NHL games might sneak into best bets. I haven't found out what Peter is going with yet. I do not have a hockey game, but if one of us does, it will break into the final segment for today. Plenty of action across Major League Baseball. We might touch on a game or two as well. And Peter, I don't know if you had a chance to catch what happened yesterday. I wish there was a way for us to be able to go and replay it from our guy Ian McMillan. But if you ever want to see, if you ever wanted to see somebody in a paper bag trying to drink champagne while crying with the two holes in the mouth. I don't even know how else to describe it other than it might have been the funniest video that I've ever seen. And yet I felt for him because once again, his Toronto Maple Leafs let him down.
Yeah, man, I feel so bad for Ian. He said the whole series, this is not the same old Leafs. They were the same old Leafs, unfortunately. I really thought they had game 6, Ben, on Thursday night, I believe it was. I texted him after they went up and I was like, dude, holy shit, the Leafs, they might have it. And he texted me back. He's like, yeah, not the same old Leafs, man. And then they blow it in overtime. And then you get,
the worst. And so they end up losing 2-1. It's another streak that continues. I think it's now for the Maple Leafs. They haven't won a playoff series in 18 years. And for somebody that has continued to just pour, I think that's the hardest part. There's been plenty of teams that have had their issues come postseason. But I think it's how the Leafs kind of bring you in, and especially because it's been the mid-90s since Canada's won a Stanley Cup. So you have a Toronto team that finally is starting to show all the signs. The way it reminds me actually is when I was in college in 2007, 2008, the Cubs won back-to-back division titles. Those were the early Lou Piniella years. And they were incredible during the regular season and then swept by the Diamondbacks in the first round and then swept, I'm trying to remember who the other team was, back-to-back sweeps in the first round of the MLB postseason. Again, baseball has more of that inherent randomness than the NHL, but the NHL still has it. And this was finally a Lightning team that was starting to feel like it wasn't going to be a three-peat for them, that the Maple Leafs were actually an ideal matchup, and it just crumbled on them. I just felt for the guy.
Yeah, I got to give Ian credit, though. And I think, we were talking about this. I think some of it is he's the genuine, but he also leans into the bit as a Leafs fan unbelievably well. Unbelievably well. I 100% believe he's heartbroken. I know it from knowing him. He definitely is. But he's also done a fantastic job of drumming up oh my God, where you would think the Leafs haven't won a game in 10 years the way he does it. So I respect the hell out of it. It's fantastic content, but I just
full on commitment to the bet.
The question I have for them, I'm not a hockey guy. It's just I feel like they have a great team. They have Austin Matthews, they have Tavares, they have some great players. When do they get over the hump? What is it going to take for this team to finally win a series? It feels like every year that's oh yeah, the Leafs, they should be one of the best teams in the NHL, and then they can't get out of the first round. It's crazy.
Is there a team, because he said in his post-game report, and you can find it, we tweeted it at BetSide, and you can also follow him at Ian Mac Bets on Twitter. You can also follow us, by the way, at Benny Heiss and at Peter Dewey too on Twitter. But I mean, he said it was the worst, it's the most cursed franchise in sports. I was trying to sort of have that debate in my head of, is it just sort of prisoner of the moment? Or does it actually end up being the Toronto Maple Leafs? Is there a comp for you? Do you think there's someone and another team that is even more cursed? Obviously, if we were having this conversation, 6 years ago, I would have said my Chicago Cubs, but that's no longer the case.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of bias when you're a fan of a team. Like you immediately think it's like it's just us. Like for me, when like I think about that, I'm like, oh man, the Knicks. Like, but like you look at the Knicks, like yes, they have been bad, and there's been they have like one of the worst records over the last 20 years. The Knicks also went to the finals twice in the 90s. They went in the early 2000s. Like you can't necessarily say they're like completely cursed. And so I'm not like I would never go there. I think the Cleveland Browns, man, that is the team for me that is just like I know they made the playoffs a couple years ago, but like how many years was it was like what 15 years, 16 years they didn't make the playoffs. Like in the NFL, especially where it's normally a ton of parity, that's kind of crazy. And then just like the quarterbacks, the fact that they can't ever draft the quarterback, the Tim Couches, the Brandon Whedons, the Johnny Manziels, like they couldn't ever get a quarterback. The teams bounced around between leaving, coming back, all that. And then now, like you thought Baker Mayfield might have been the guy. He's not going to pan out. He's stuck on the team. You can't trade him. And you bring in Deshaun Watson, who off the field is just like it's like at that point, it's like almost do you want to be a Browns fan? Like all of the Browns stuff, I think is just so far. I don't think I can go there. Like the Leafs obviously have won a cup. Like the Browns, it's just I feel like they've been horrible my entire life. And so it's just like there's no way. I don't think you can get past them. Just the lack of success.
Yeah. And by the way, if you guys want to weigh in as well, head on over to YouTube. Just search BetSided. We're streaming live. Happy to read some of your chats in the conversation as well. But the team that you feel like, regardless of whether you're a team that you're betting on it or if you're a fan of, any team that maybe can compare to the Maple Leafs as far as cursed nature goes. Peter suggested the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction and take the Buffalo Bills, because you're talking about a team that made it through 4 Super Bowls in the late 80s, early 90s, not able to win any of them. Something inevitably got in their way and got in the way at the worst possible time. At least for Ian and the Maple Leafs' sake, it's early on in the postseason. It's not in the Stanley Cup final every year. Imagine losing 4 Stanley Cup finals in a row. You would think too in a 1-game single elimination setting that some sort of variance would work in your favor for Buffalo, but that never ended up being the case. And then I think back to this postseason, right? Like Josh Allen throws 2 touchdowns to Gabriel Davis in the final 2 minutes on the road at Arrowhead, and Chiefs and the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes still find a way to send the game into overtime. And then it's not as if the Bills blew the game in overtime. Josh Allen never had a chance to possess the football. It was just the Chiefs. They won the coin toss. Like at some point, if you're the Buffalo Bills and that fan base, you have to say, like, are we going to get something? I suppose you got your quarterback now, and maybe the great quarterbacks still find a way. But I mean, that wasn't even on Allen there. It was taken from their hands, and they had nothing to really be able to do with it.
That's a good one. I think when you talk about curse, you have to like decide, is it between like teams who have come close and came up short, or teams who have just always been bad and it's just like never changed around? Because I think that's like 2 different things. Like, because I mean, the Cubs, and correct me if I'm wrong, like the Cubs were good for a good amount of time, like for certain periods of time. They just never won the World Series. Like I remember like growing up, like the Derek Lee or Ramos Ramirez team, like they had good teams. Obviously there's the Bartman year and everything, but like
that was the year. That was the 2003. That was the 2003 team, and I think you can make an argument that was for sure a curse, because that was the Bartman year in Game 6. They're up 3-0. The last time I cried, Peter, as a sports fan, was the 2003 NLCS after Game 7, because like Game 6, I was just like still in shock. Couldn't figure out what just happened. Then Game 7, like Kerry Wood was on the mound. He had a home run in the game. And then the Marlins just snatched it away. And I just remember being so heartbroken at that point. But like, they had good teams. Like it was always sort of like on 1 year. Like 98, they had the year Sosa, and McGuire had the home run chase, but they got eliminated early. 2003, NLCS in the most heartbreaking fashion. And then 2007, 2008, they were swept in the divisional round. So and then they didn't get those good teams until the mid 2014,
then they kind of tore it down.
And then they ended up winning the World Series. But then like there were other years like maybe, but like they had a good team like maybe twice a decade in the 60s and the 70s and then the 80s and the 90s.
Because I
So
think about that for the Red Sox too before they like broke the 86. Like they had
yeah,
good teams. They just never got over the hump. Like, and I mean, you obviously know more about the Cubs than me, but like growing up, like the Mark Pryors, the Kerry Woods, I was like, they had great players. They just never got over the hump. I feel like the Browns has just been like they're always bad. And then like the Bills, you said, like had some great teams, just never were able to get over the hump. I
yeah.
think that I agree with you hurts more than always being bad because you like your expectations can't be that high. But it is tough to decide which one makes you more cursed because that's the thing with the Leafs too. Like they've had good teams and they just never get there. So that hurts more for sure. I feel like
For sure. And like sort of the whole entire concept of like which cursed is the worst cursed. It's like
yeah, it's terrible.
yeah, I mean you could probably have a whole other show about like would you rather be the team that, gets your heart broken or the team that has never had the chance to love it all.
Yeah,
You can really go either way on this, but certainly a fascinating element to it. And again, just heartbreak for the Leafs. Like I was really pulling for them. Like I wanted
yeah.
to see them win. The content for me would have been great either way. But yeah, make sure you guys go check that out. Just seeing a wet paper bag fan with the eyes and the mouth, just not being able to get champagne in the mouth and then spilling it all over his face. Like the
It's
commitment
fantastic.
is just so well done. So shout out to you and thank you for committing to the bit even in the midst of heartbreak. I know that was not an easy thing to do. But let's dive into to Game 7 day. What an awesome Sunday that we have on tap. In the NHL, you got two Game 7s tonight. Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Rangers. We're going to go through the NBA slate again. Like NHL, not necessarily our forte. You can read some of the coverage over at BetSided. Our Joe Summers is doing an outstanding job today of covering the Sunday slate for the NHL. But just so you guys know, over on the show, the Penguins plus a 105 on the money line. They're plus 1.5 on the puck line tonight. Rangers of minus 125 favorite at home. Total of 6 in that game. And then Dallas and Calgary tonight. The Flames are minus 1.5 on the run line on the puck line, minus 200 favorites at home, total of 5.5. If you want the Stars on the money line, you can get them at plus 175. But Peter, let's talk ball because we got two great series finally coming down to an end in Boston, in Phoenix today. You have the Boston Celtics 5-point favorites. What I've always found fascinating about this series is that there haven't been very many times other than in Game 6 where these teams were like really close to each other on the spread. I feel like in almost every game it's been like 5 or 6, just despite the nature of this series where you feel like any team could win at any night. But the Bucks are 5-point underdogs on the road at Boston in Game 7. If you want to take Milwaukee on the money line, and it's the higher of the two game totals, but it's still very low at 206. So initial impressions before we start diving in: Bucks 5-point underdogs on the road, and Boston looking to close out that series after getting a big win in Milwaukee in Game 6.
Yeah, to get right into it, I bet the Celtics -5 in this game. I think they're gonna win. I think they might win pretty convincingly. Just Game 6, and I love your thoughts. I love your thoughts on this too because the Bucks just squandered an opportunity. Like you get Game 6 at home after that win in Game 5, where they had no business winning Game 5, and Boston kind of handed it to them, and they win Game 5. Like you had to close that out. You can't let this Celtics team. Now they have all the momentum coming back home. Jason Tatum just played his best game of the playoffs. And Boston has shot the ball really well in some of the games at TD Garden. Game 2, they shot the ball like crazy in the first half. Game 5, they shot the ball very well until the end of the game. So the thing that scares me with the Bucks, Ben, is last game, Boston shot the ball from 3 extremely well. Bucks only made like 6 threes, I believe it was.
Right.
So if the Bucks aren't getting 30, 35 plus from Giannis and 20, 25 plus from Jrue Holiday, I just don't know where the points come from them because nobody else has been consistent. Like Pat Connaughton was good in Game 6. Bobby Portis was good earlier in the series, but Bobby Portis has struggled in the last couple of games. The Celtics have kind of hunted him on defense. Grayson Allen's been horrible. And Brook Lopez has like gotten played off the floor the last 2 games. So for me, I just don't like this Bucks team. And you hear the cliche like, oh, the team with the best player wins Game 7. Like, yeah, Giannis might be the best player, but there's a very good chance the Celtics have the second and third best player. And like if Drew Holiday doesn't have it, they may have the fourth best player if Marcus Smart or Al Horford plays well. And like I love Drew Holiday. If like you take all things considered, clearly he's one of the four best players in the series. But
Yes.
he's also had multiple games where he shot like 5 for 20. So if he's going to have that kind of performance, you're one, wasting all those possessions on him taking those shots. Two, you're not getting anyone else going. So for me, for the Bucks, like it's going to be either the Giannis hero game or like I just think the Celtics just are too well-rounded, too good defensively for them in this game. And foul trouble is going to play a role like it always does. I feel like in game 7 if somebody gets into foul trouble.
Yeah.
And it would scare me a lot more on the Bucks side if one of the stars got into the foul trouble than Boston. I just think Boston has more options.
They definitely have more options. I've also seen more than enough times Giannis be able to close out games on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I give, Milwaukee a lot of credit for is that their offense has not been here in this series, right? Like
No.
it's almost kind of been a bit of a role reversal. Like we've seen Milwaukee become the number one defensive rated team in the NBA over the course of the postseason. Now they've let it slip a little bit over the last couple of games. We saw the first over of the Bucks' entire playoff run.
Yeah.
I believe it was either in Game 4 or no, it was Game 5.
Game 5, yeah.
We finally saw the over hit. And Boston, conversely, they're fourth right now in defensive rating over the course of the postseason. So I actually jumped on the under right away. It opened at 210. It's been bet down to 206.5. So I got it at 210. I still feel like 206.5 is a worthy play just because it's been the entire MO of this series. And that like even if Milwaukee wants to run, Boston is going to be so set in their defense and be able to match up and get the opportunities that they want. And also for Milwaukee, if you go into Giannis inside, if you let him sort of work the paint, if they start to double him and guys start making shots, like the half court offense for them is actually feasible here.
Yeah.
So I love the under once again in this game. And again, maybe you look for a fast start, try to bet it live as opposed to taking the number that's already been moved down 3.5. But as far as who advances, like you make a lot of really good points, and maybe you can explain it a little bit more. Excuse me. But I have such a difficult time moving away from Milwaukee here, especially given every sort of circumstance that they've kind of fallen into. Boston has made them adjust and readjust throughout, but they've been able to do it. And I don't know whether that's just a product of Budenholzer actually making some necessary changes, or if it's just only been a byproduct of them making more shots. What do you think?
So the way I look at this, and yeah, I mean, the shot making, I mean, this game's going to come down to like whose role players step up because I think we're going to see good games from Giannis and good games from Tatum. But like somebody, like you said, somebody's got to make shots. I don't know what Bud really can do to adjust at this point though, because their rotation is so short. Like he's really only got a few options to go to. But here's why I'm taking the Celtics, and it's a two-pronged thing. But you look at this. So since 2011, home teams in Game 7 are 22-10 straight up. That's a 68% of the time they're winning. If they're favored by 5 or more, they're 14-10 against the spread and 19-5 straight up. So obviously, home teams favored in Game 7. A little bit, you're on the stronger side in terms of the trend. The reason I'm taking the Celtics is you look at the way that these games have gone, that the Celtics have won versus the Bucks have won. Game 1, Bucks won by 12. Game 2, Boston wins by 23. Game 3, Bucks win by 2. Game 4, Boston wins by 8. Game 5, Bucks win by 3. Game 6, Boston wins by 13. When Boston wins, they're winning going away. So I think they win this game. I think they win. They keep that trend of going away. When they've won games, it's because the Bucks haven't been able to hang offensively. And so that's why like the 5 points doesn't scare me too much with Boston. On the if Milwaukee wins this game, like that obviously this bet's dead. But like my thing is like if the Bucks are gonna win, that's the way it's gonna be a close game. I think the Celtics are gonna win, so that's why I'm fine with laying the points. I like every one of these games has been either Milwaukee had to fight back from a fourth quarter deficit or they were up big at the end of the third and they blew the lead in the fourth quarter. So if Boston can kind of just like do what they did, like they control game 6 the entire game. It felt like that game was like the whole game, a 10-point game. And so for me, if Boston's going to win this game, I think 5 is not too crazy of a number given what they've done in the series. Obviously, they could collapse like they did in game 5, but I'm back in the trend. Home teams game 7 is been pretty lucrative if you bet them over the last 10 years. So I'll take that.
Yeah, and even though I still expect Milwaukee to figure it out, that trend does scare me, and part of the reason why I am leaning towards the under again. It's just been too consistent in this series. You've mentioned not only the abilities for a lot of these home teams in game 7, but just the pace continues to slow down and down and down. And let's say it plays into your narrative that Boston wins it in, fairly convincing fashion. That's going to take away Milwaukee's ability to score as well.
Yeah.
If Boston wins this game handily, it's because the Bucks aren't making shots.
Exactly.
They're going to be under 100 points again, and the under likely hits unless both teams completely punt, and then it becomes a game in transition late in the fourth quarter, and then the over ends up hitting. So
I think we're going to find out real quick if the Bucks have it tonight. Like, we're going to find out, depending upon what Bud does, if he decides to start Grayson Allen again, if he goes back to Bobby Portis. I'm very intrigued to see what he does because Connaughton was really good in game 6, and, like, he's got to play because defensively, right, I think he's better than Grayson Allen too. We're going to find out real fast. Like, if Bobby Portis hits a couple shots or Grayson Allen or Connaughton hits a couple shots or, like, Giannis is unstoppable in the first quarter, like, okay, we might know. But, like, if we see the same thing we've seen in some of these games where it's just either Giannis gets to the rim or the Bucks don't score, I just don't think the Celtics lose this game. They just have too much firepower. Like, Tatum doesn't have to be going because Brown might be. And if Brown's not going, like, they might be able to get Horford going. Like, they've had multiple guys step up in this series, whereas the Bucks, it's been Giannis goes crazy and we win because him and Drew scored 60-something points. And I just –
right.
If that doesn't happen, I just don't know how Milwaukee gets the points. Like you said, that's why I think the under is also like fantastic. Like if Milwaukee scores over 100 points, like 105, 110 points, I'd be in shock. Like this game, if they win, they are going to need it to be low scoring. That it's going to have to happen.
Without question. Couple prop notes to make you aware of, and this is from the great folks over at Fanshare NBA. Marcus Smart has not gone above 6.5 assists in 7 of his last 9 games. He's been averaging 5.7 over the course of that postseason run. His prop number is set at 6.5. Also, if you're looking for an over to play today, Derek White has gone above 2.5 assists in 17 of his last 22 games. So again, that's information over at Fanshare. If you're looking for a couple of prop plays. Also, Peter's going to have voices starting to wear down. This is what happens when you take back-to-back red eyes.
Oh man!
For the course of the last couple of days, so we're gonna hang on for dear life here on Bet and Breakfast. Might have to add tea to the Bet and Breakfast menu. So let's dive into to Mavericks and Suns. I should mention, by the way, just to recap for anyone joining us, Peter is on the Celtics at -5. I jumped on the under very early at 210. It's since been down to 206.5. But I still think it's a good play to jump in on the under, even at that number. If you want to wait a little bit to bet it live, you certainly can do that as well. The other game on the slate in the evening is the Mavericks and the Suns. Have we found out yet who the officials are going to be?
Yeah, Scott Foster is not officiating either game today.
Okay.
I have both right here. So the Boston game is give me 1 second. The Boston game is James Capers, Kane Fitzgerald, John Goebel, and the Dallas Phoenix game is Zach Zarba, Tony Brothers, and Josh Tibbett. So Tony Brothers, Zach Zarba, you might see a lot of fouls in this game. I'm not that is Zach Zarba is very well known for setting the tone early with how he's going to call a game. And
it's already been a very physical series too, but I mean, it's 6.5, which feels a bit high to me. I don't know if that's the books trying and even out some of their action. Maybe they have a lot of Suns money already. We can find out from the folks at WinBet and share that over at BetSided. But But yeah, 6.5 point total for 6.5 points for the Suns on the spread. If you want Dallas money line, you can get them at plus 230. And the total is set at 204.5. If it is going to be a very physical game, that does benefit, I think, the Suns at home.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's also the slower type of environment that Dallas can thrive in too. Dallas kind of plays a little bit of bully ball, and Doncic can kind of beat you up a little bit inside, and he already has such a big size and weight advantage, especially whenever he's being guarded at the top of the key. That's not to say Paul can't stay around him, but Doncic is so good. Even though he looks so slow around the perimeter and then driving in, he gets to his spots exceptionally well. Do you feel like if it is going to be a slow it down, grind it out type game like the numbers suggest, which team do you think that favors more?
That's a tough one. I do think it favors Phoenix a little bit more, just because if it is a slow it down, grind it out game, like it's going to be Luka or bust for the Mavs. And if I'm the Suns, like you got to hope that Mikal Bridges doesn't get in foul trouble. But I think the Suns have a little bit more options on offense. Something I wanted to point out in this game, Ben, too, that's really important. We talked about the role players in the Bucks Celtics series, and like I don't want to underestimate how important stars are, but like role players win games in these type of scenarios. Like if you have one guy who just has a really good game, looking at some of the Mavs key role guys at home versus on the road in this series, Reggie Bullock had 19 points in Game 6 in that win. He hit 5 threes. Game 5 in Phoenix, 0 for 5, didn't score. In the first 2 games at Phoenix, he had a 2 for 7 day and a 5 for 9 day. Another guy, Spencer Dinwiddie, first 2 games in Phoenix, he combined to shoot 6 for 18. Game 5, he had 2 points, was 0 for 3. But then Game 6 in Dallas, 15 points on 5 of 7, hit 5 threes. So for Dallas, like their role guys have showed up at home. It's why they've won all 3 home games. On the road, they have not at all. And so you're going to need some kind of steady, medium like spot here. Like Dorian Finney-Smith had a bad game for them in Game 6, which is like they were able to weather the storm because Bullock and Dinwiddie played so well. But for a Dallas team that relies on making and taking a lot of threes, a physical game, I think, benefits the Suns because they kind of get the Mavs out of that where you're like, just we'll run the floor and we'll get some open shots. Like the Mavs already play at a pretty slow pace. So if this is going to be a physical game, I think Phoenix is well equipped to like have guys get to the line. Like they'll play through DeAndre Ayton a little bit. They'll let Devin Booker get to the rim. I think it benefits them, but at the same time, the way this series has gone, it's looked like at home the Suns are like the way better team, and on the road the Mavs look like the way better team. So, this is going to be an interesting one. I wouldn't be afraid to bet the Mavs plus 6.5 if we do think it slows down, just because like if there's only going to be 204 points, like how far of a gap are we really going to see? I'll save my best bet for later because it was a prop, but I'm interested. What are you on a side in this one?
I'll probably go under again.
Okay.
Just because these teams since Game 2 have done nothing offensively on the road.
Yeah.
Nothing. Dallas scored 80 points in Game 5. Phoenix beat them by 30. Game 6, Mavs dropped 103. Phoenix only scored 86. None of these, they've been competitive, but the results haven't really felt that way. Like Phoenix won by 7 in Game 1. They won by 10 in Game 2. Mavericks won by 9 and then by 10. And then the last 2 have been blowouts with, the home team really starting to dominate. So the problem is that 204 is just so low.
It is so low.
Like it still might feel like a stay away. Like I'll probably tail your prop and your best bet of the day. Because I like how it sets up for it. And I also know that the public is still going to want to bet a lot of overs on props in Game 7. And that's really one of the worst things you can do, just because that things are going to slow down. Maybe for rebounds is something that could be in play, and maybe assists, but certainly point totals you typically want to lean on the underside for. But I don't know, like so many blowouts and so many lopsided games. To me, this does feel like gets to a point where it should be closer than it is. Like if I had to take a side or a total, I'd probably go Mavs plus 6.5. Just because even though they haven't done it in losses, I feel like they're capable of it. We just haven't seen it from them over the course of this series. And I feel like there's enough variance and enough back and forth between both these teams that they're capable of doing it. And especially if it slows down, that behooves them a little bit. I know you mentioned that there's the advantage to the Suns, but I think maybe more so for them to close it out as opposed to sort of taking Dallas and completely just taking him out of the series. I just don't see that in this type of game today. And maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. And I mean, if you were one of the people, like not saying you specifically, but like anybody out there, if you believe in the best player wins game 7, like Luka Doncic is the best player in this series. Like I love Devin Booker. Luka Doncic is the best player in this series. It's not even a question. But at the same time, like, and maybe I'm optimistic, but Chris Paul's been horrendous in this series. Like he is due to have a somewhat good game. And that's really all the Suns need to like, okay, we're going to be here. Because I think like Devin Booker, I will give him credit. He's going to go down swinging. Like they didn't win. They got killed in game 6. Devin Booker still took like 7 free throws, 17 shots. Like he was trying. He had 8 assists. Like they just didn't end up like they just didn't have anything else going. Like Chris Paul has kind of just been like, if he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. But it's really going to come down to, and it's the same thing I think in the Celtics-Bucks game, and I think we're seeing how top-heavy some of these teams are, and it's making me feel a lot better about the Heat and the Warriors than these teams that are in these Game 7s. Yeah. It's like those teams don't rely on the same guy every night to go and score like 30 points. Like, sure, the Warriors need Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole to play well, but I just named 3 guys who are a threat to get 30 on any night. With the Suns, it's like it's Devin Booker or bust. And with the Mavs, it's Luka or bust. And with the Bucks, it's Giannis, and with the Celtics, it's Tatum. And so it gets me a little nervous for those teams where, like, if Devin Booker doesn't have it going tonight, like, what do the Suns do? I don't know. Like, they're going to have to lean on Chris Paul. Yeah. So, and like, if Luka doesn't have it going, like, do the Mavs, is it Brunson? Like, Brunson's been up and down in this series. So, that's the thing that concerns me more. That's why I kind of like the underplay, because if this game is physical and it gets bogged down, like you're just going to see a bunch of long possessions where it's like Devin Booker, Luka Doncic isos, and they try and get a bucket, or maybe, Devin Booker, DeAndre in pick and roll. I don't see the Mavs, who have played slow all year. I believe they played the slowest pace in the NBA in the regular season, trying to speed up a game 7. Like that doesn't behoove them at all, because they don't have the secondary guys to go and beat this Suns team. Like they're going to need Luka to have a really good game. The best way you can like leverage that is by making sure every one of his shots counts, by like forcing long possessions and putting the Suns in position where they have to really work for their offense. But I will say this, as somebody who has a future on the Suns, I am not confident. This series, this team, like the regular season was great. They played fantastic. Playoff basketball is a whole different breed, and I just really question, outside of Devin Booker, like who you can rely on every night, and that scares me a lot.
The under just feels too low, and again, like everything that you said adds up, but I don't know. There's like a part of me that feels like I can't get on board for it. So if I was going to take a side, I still think I'm leaning Mavs plus 6.5. Just because if you are buying into that theory, and I know that there's so much more to it, but I almost do kind of trust some of Dallas's role players a little bit more right now, to be a little bit more consistent. Ultimately, the ball's still going to end up through Doncic, but like I do trust Brunson a little bit more to make some big plays and keep it going. So
he's going to have to be the guy. He's going to have to be the guy, because the other guys are really just hit or miss. Like Brunson is the guy that you can kind of count on. So he's going to have to be if the Mavs want to win this game.
All right. So if we were taking a side for this one, I would go Dallas plus 6.5. Peter, you'd lean on the under 204.5. Let's actually get into our actual best bets of the day. After breaking down both of these NBA Game 7s. And again, you can find all these plays over at BetSided, including game previews from every game in Major League Baseball, tonight's MLB games, the Stanley Cup playoffs as well, props, predictions, really everything you need for a full slate on Sunday. So, Peter, you're sticking with the NBA. We'll go to you first, and then I have a play on an underdog One that maybe you may not like from a personal level, but I'll get to that in just a second. So what's your best bet of the night?
Yeah, I'm taking Luka Doncic under 53.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Again, Luka's been great. There's a stat circulating this morning in elimination games. He averages 39 points per game in the playoffs in his career. Fantastic number. If he scores 39 tonight, probably going to have a chance to hit the over on this. But if you look at Luka's playoffs, he's played 9 playoff games. He's gone over this number one time. That one time, game 1 against the Suns when he scored 45 points. So you look at his last game, and last game was an elimination game. So we can take that entire theory in game 6. He finished with 52. He had 33, 11, and 8. So he could have another game like that. He's still going to go under this number. This number is so inflated. And like, I hate to like read off counting numbers, but like in this series, Doncic's PRA numbers are 65, the game 1 when he scored 45, 47, 48, 44, 41, 52. So like for the, like other than game 6, he hasn't even come close to this number in 4 of the other 5 games. So for me, I think if you are going to have a game where, like I said, it's probably going to be slow paced, low total, to get to 53.5 PRA, he's going to probably have to grab double-digit rebounds and score 35-plus points, because I just don't know how he's – if they only score like 95 points, like is Luka going to be a part of 60 of those points? He might be, but like it's crazy like the odds of that happening. So I just think this number is a little too high for what probably will be a low-scoring game based on the total. And like I said, he's done it one time in 9 playoff games. Like some of these PRA numbers, like you have to really they try and get you on. It's a really good player, and you're like, oh my god, like of course Giannis is, or of course Luka's going to have a good game. And then when you really break it down, how much it takes to get to 53.5, 54 points, rebounds, and assists, like he's going to have an all-time type of game tonight. I just don't know. Like the Suns may decide they're going to let him score, but that means he probably doesn't get that many assists. Right. And if he could score 40 points, get 10 boards, and if he has 2 assists, he's still going under here. So I just think the number's a little too high. Based on like earlier in the series, it was like at 49, at 50. I think I took him in game 4 under 51.5, and he finished with like 41, 42. So like the number is climbing, and it's because he's done it one time. I'm not in a game 7. No way.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense to me. Under 53.5 is the play on points, rebounds, and assists, PRA for today for Doncic. And you're right. Like, even if he does take over the game, the other stats are going to go down as a result of it. Mm-hmm. And again, we're talking about slower possessions. We're talking about more time, more isolated basketball. Like that's going to take away some of the assist opportunities as well. It's a large number to climb, and he could still ball out, Peter, and not come close to hitting that prop.
Exactly. Like all those numbers I read off where he was in like the 40, he had great games. He had like high 20s, low 30s points, was like pushing double digit, either rebounds or assists. Great games. Still not coming close to 53.5. Like it is a huge, huge number.
No doubt. All right, let me give you my play for the day, and that is going up against your New York Yankees. I like the White Sox as a money line play today. I really, really do. And I've been the same guy advocating for them to make a managerial change. I think they have a lot of issues right now. One of those issues is not Michael Kopech. He has been sensational. He's given up a total of 3 runs all season long. In 4 of his 6 starts, he has not allowed an earned run. The strikeout rate continues to climb. He's been flat out dominant. And he has a bit of luck on his side as well, but not for anything that he's done. The luck is, and I don't know if I should even call it luck because the numbers actually back this up as well. Do you want to know what the White Sox record is against left-handed pitchers going back to last year?
I know it's good. I feel like you've told me this before. I don't know it straight.
In their last record. 27 games, the Chicago White Sox were 26-1 against left-handed starting pitching.
Wow.
26-1. And wow. the splits back it up. Against lefties, so far, this is just this year. Against left-handers, they're hitting 268 compared to 221. And this is a White Sox team that's hovering around 500. They're slugging 435 compared to 338. Their on-base percentage is a full 0.7 points higher. Their OPS is 779 against lefties compared to 611 against right-handers. Everything from a confidence standpoint with this team performs better when they're facing left-handed pitching, and the results are starting to back that up as well. Yankees are countering with the dude. Okay, like let's not take away from the pitching matchup here, and it's also another reason that you could probably consider the under as well.
That's what I think I might take in this game.
That's also very, very intriguing here with Cortez on the mound, and his ERA is at 1.41. But between Kopech starting to look sharp, and by the way, he should have had his first win of the season. He's 0-0 in 6 starts. He lost that win in the game against the Guardians where the White Sox gave up 6 runs in the bottom of the 9th. So, if you want to take the Yankees live, if they have a lead going into the bottom innings, the White Sox bullpen has been garbage over the course of this year. So that's another potential live play there. But I do think the White Sox on the money line probably can make an argument that they deserve to be slight favorites here. But I was actually a bit surprised to see that the money was starting to move this much towards the White Sox with Cortez on the mound, especially with how popular he's been to bet. But I do think the White Sox are very much in play as a small money line underdog at home on the South Side for today. So that is our show. We always appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on Bet and Breakfast on the weekends. You can always catch us Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you're watching us on Twitter at BetSided, make sure you guys head on over to YouTube. Go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We are live every day, Monday through Friday, as you see below. Daily bet slip, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Saturday and Sunday, we are live for Bet and Breakfast at 11 a.m. Eastern, going over what you just heard, our favorite plays of the day, talking about some of the meaningful games on the slate, where we're going, where we're betting, and all of this can also be found at BetSided as well, fansided.com/BetSided. So, Peter, good luck with your bets today. Always good to see you. Always good to hang out on the show. Thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us as well. For Peter, I am Ben. We'll see you back on Daily Bet Slip tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Until then, so long. May all of your bets hit for today.